regular meeting of the Detroit Lake City Council is called to order. And at this time, I'd like to invite you to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda for the council this evening is the approval of the minutes of the special planning session meeting held on September 4th, 2014, and the regular city council meeting held on September 9th, 2014, and also a special city council meeting held September 18th, 2014. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the city council that wishes to make any corrections or changes to the minutes as printed? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve those 3 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the Special Planning Commission of September 4th, the regular council meeting September 9th, and a special council meeting September 18th. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. The consent agenda is before the council, and all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the city council that wishes to either add or delete any items from the consent agenda?
Here I request a 6J, project status report from city engineer.
Are there any other items that any council member or member of the audience wishes to change in the consent agenda? And since we seem to be doing that the last few months, maybe we should just not have that on the consent agenda, Glory. Okay?
Just made a note of that.
All right. Very good. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion for approval with the one change.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 6J, which is taken off the consent agenda. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. I'm going to jump around a little bit to accommodate people that are here for specific agenda items. So without objection, I would like to move to the Community Development Committee agenda, and I would call on Chairman Suki for item A and B, please.
Item A is consideration to a variance to allow a 45-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark for construction of an addition to a home at 1348 South Shore Drive. We have visited this before, and Larry's back with the new request.
This is a request for a 45-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark to construct an addition to a home. The resolution that's enclosed lists all of the findings of fact, and the Planning Commission recommends approval of this variance subject to the following conditions. First, that the owners provide the city with a plan that shows the project will meet the impervious surface requirement and that the home will be constructed generally as shown on the approved site plan. Two, that rain gutters be placed on the home to direct stormwater away from the lake. Three, that the owners construct a 6-inch high berm across the entire lot between the home and the shoreline, and that the project not exceed the 25% impervious surface.
The Community Development Committee has reviewed this and has approved the conditions, and we move to grant the variance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a variance at 1348 South Shore Drive, and as Larry explained, there are 4 conditions along with that variance. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried.
Item B is consideration to a variance to allow a 8-foot side yard setback to allow construction of a 16 by 50-foot addition to a commercial building at 120 North Washington Avenue. The Planning Commission reviewed this earlier and recommended that we grant that variance. I'll call on Larry to highlight the recommendations.
This is a request for an 8-foot side yard to allow a 16 by 50-foot addition at 120 North Washington Avenue, Chamber 2. The findings of fact are listed in the resolution that's in your packet. The planning commission recommends approval of this variance without any conditions.
The Community Development Committee reviewed this at our committee meeting, and we so move.
Motion has been made and seconded to grant a variance at 120 North Washington Avenue. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Without objection, I'd now like to move to the Public Works Committee agenda, and I would call on Chairman Auni for those items that we discussed earlier.
Okay, let's start with item 6D. We're offering consideration of a resolution setting a hearing date for the Washington Avenue revised construction project detailing Highway 10 to Willow Street. The resolution is enclosed. Hearing set for the November council meeting, November the 12th. Move for approval of accepting that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to set a hearing date for the Washington Avenue revised reconstruction project, Highway 10 to Willow Street. And that would be on the day of our council meeting,
Wednesday, November the 12th.
Wednesday, November 12th, okay?
Correct.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
And then an item not on the agenda but related to that, dealing with the basement encroachment issue along Washington Avenue with the properties on the east side of Washington Avenue, dealing with a revision as per requests of property owners there. We're looking at an increased expenditure resulting in a 75-25% split between county and city and property owners as indicated on the resolution included on the desk here this evening. We have asked for a response from the business owners by October the 24th for this. I think I might ask for our city attorney to just clarify anything that may need to be clarified in regard to that.
Sure, members of the council. As you know, we've been trying to work out an agreement with the landowners relative to 4 of the properties along Washington Avenue with regard to what some people will call area ways, but basically extensions of their basements. And that's been going on for, seems like a long time. I think it's probably close to a year now. We had made a proposal to them a week or two ago for a revision of the agreement. I found out that they were being represented by an attorney from Wadena, Mr. Dan Carlisle, so I had some communications with him and sent him a proposed agreement. Had a conversation with him, and he indicated that essentially the agreement that we had proposed would be acceptable to his clients. And first of all, our proposal was that there would be a 50-50 split, that we would come to the council and ask for 50-50 with the landowners paying half the cost and the city paying the balance, city and county paying the balance. And so Mr. Carlisle and I had a conversation about the agreement and various other sort of details, and when the conversation concluded, basically what he told me is that his clients were fine with the language of the agreement, provided that the city were to pay 75% of the costs, leaving 25% of the costs to the landowners. The costs we are talking about here would be the cost of the construction based upon the proposals from Zaya Concrete, and also the landowners' costs associated with getting their structural engineer. They hired a structural engineer to prepare a design, and they've all incurred some expense in doing that, and so we would add those into the total costs. And so I guess that was the way we left it. When we had our committee meeting yesterday, the city did ask that there was a question about when can we start. So I have added language to the proposed agreement that just says that we would give them 30 days notice before we would start doing any work on their buildings. I think it's reasonable that we have something in the agreement that talks about, you know, how do we do this, and that we're going to give them some notice because they're going to have to know beforehand. So the revision that's in front of you is essentially the proposal that Mr. Carlisle talked about with the changes that it has a 30-day start period and it would have the city pay 75% of the cost. That's based upon their request. And I will leave it to the council. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Charlie? Bruce?
Mr. Carlisle is representing all the property owners?
Mr. Carlisle told me that he represented all of the property owners, which would be the Price Building, the Flynn Building, the DLM Building where TLC is, and then also DLM, which used to be the Ginny Stevens Building. They purchased that now.
Okay. So given that this was their proposal back to us, and we've agreed to this, there should not be any surprises coming from their side to say, oh, we want to redo this or redo that.
You know, I trust Mr. Carlisle. I mean, he's a good lawyer. He's always been real upfront and honest with me, so I don't have any reason to believe that this is some sort of, I don't have any reason to believe that this is anything other than up and on the honest.
Okay.
So while I understand that the council is not necessarily, I understand that this may not be the most popular thing for you to do, it's my belief that, based upon what Mr. Carlisle told me, that by doing this, we'll be done with it. And I'm trusting him to have that be the case.
And no, I appreciate that, and I think my comment is related to that, that we're going under the assumption that because he told you this, representing his clients, that this is it. We're not getting any stuff back from them to say, oh, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm kind of saying that for the benefit of the council here.
And I will answer that as honestly as I can. That's my belief, that's what he told me, and so I'm going to.
Further questions? Do we have a motion yet, Dave?
No, just knowing that we need to get this taken care of. It's something that's, been talked about for a long, long time. I move for approval of this agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the basement encroachment.
If I could, I would like, though, to have, as something that Alderman Ani said earlier, we do need, from my own personal perspective, if we're not going to end up with an agreement, if this doesn't work for some reason, there should be some timeframe. Mr. Carlisle indicated he would be back in the office on the 20th, so I guess I would like to have a positive response from the landowners by some date, and
I think initially I'd mentioned October 24th.
Again, yeah, I just want to give him time to be able to, confirm this with his clients.
You want to add that to the motion?
Yes, please.
And I
Is
had
the
assumed
seconder-
I had assumed it was already part of the motion, so.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
So the motion is to approve the agreement, and we also put a stipulation, we want a response from the attorney representing the landowners by October 24th.
He should be able to do that. He told me he'd be back in the office on the 20th.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion's carried.
Okay, let's move on to item 6E, offering consideration of the request of VTD to pave Peter Street. There was a request enclosed with our packet today. We visited about this. It's in the area not far from Chris Street, just off Randolph Road. The action that we're taking tonight is to ask for a feasibility study to be made for that project, and I would move for that to happen.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to move forward with a preliminary, engineering study, is that? Preliminary engineering report to consider paving Peter Street and Fortune Avenue. David or Gundy, you guys have anything you want to bring up or add?
No, just that we were building a parking lot, expanding the building, and we need a road to get to the parking.
Okay.
Pretty simple. If the parking lot be paved, road, our parking lot, Peter Street be paved. Pretty simple. Thanks.
More roads and more parking means more jobs, right?
Right.
Okay.
More property tax.
Mike? Mike?
I guess in response to that, Schultz Garage is a small company. Fred Garnes, the other property owner, and Chris Garnes private citizens have lived there and been in business there for a long time without a paved road. And if BTD is coming for something that's gonna benefit really them, then we would ask, speaking for us in the gardens, is that BTD carry the weight when it comes time for the money to be spent. We would really appreciate not having to pay for road. And then the other thing to consider is the buses leave at 6:40 in the morning to 7:10. And then they leave again from 3:15 to 3:25. BTD shift ends and starts at 7 and 3 o'clock for the morning shift and the afternoon shift. So there's gonna be some congestion issues there too to think of, so. Those would be the issues I'd have
Okay.
concerns about, so thank you.
Did those items come up in our committee discussions?
Yes.
Bob, you want to respond to that?
I believe those issues all came up, and John is going to put together a preliminary estimate and plan, and then we're gonna try and meet with the property owners before the next Public Works Committee meeting to go over their individual concerns and see if we can get those addressed.
The action we're taking tonight is to ask for the
Just for the
report in the
report.
study.
But we've noted Mike's concerns
Correct.
with the money and with the scheduling, with the potential conflict of the buses and the, okay. Was there a motion?
Yes.
Was there a second?
Yes?
Okay. Is there more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion is carried.
And let's move on to item 6F, then offering consideration to the request made by Sauk River Estates to design and install water and sewer services for the Golden Bay Shores development. The request was enclosed in your packet. This oftentimes occurs, not all the time, but is a workable situation with our city engineer. Based upon discussion with him at our committee meeting yesterday, I'd move for approval of this request.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the request made by Sauk River Estates LLC to design and install water and sewer services for the Golden Bay Shores development. So they would present all their plans and you would be a part of the construction in terms of overseeing
Yeah,
to a degree?
generally speaking, I mean, Larry's gonna put together an agreement, confer with Larry on some of the points, but we would review the plans, make sure the proper permits are in place, they're complying with our stormwater ordinance. We would do some construction inspection, require record drawings, and all the normal things that we would do with the project, we would just be requiring them.
Discussion on the motion. Bruce?
Not necessarily opposed to this, but just making sure we're aware that, you know, this issue's come up before. I know on the Golden Bay Shores, they did their own streets. And I've heard comments from people up there now that live up there. They've done their choice to live up there, I understand that. But now, all the streets are too narrow. You know, what can the city do about it? And why isn't the city plowing our streets? So if we're gonna do these private things, I think we need to make sure, I don't know how we note that to future homeowners, that's whatever, they're buying into that. And the second thing is, when we're doing this water and sewer, knowing what happened at Timber Creek this year, I'm hoping that for sure, whoever's designing this, we've got on record that if there's some complaint about the water lines freezing, it's not the city's fault, and they gotta go back to the developer for that. So I'm just kind of expressing my frustration that the city's gotten blamed for things that they haven't been on the hook for, and I don't know that people always understand that.
John, when a project like this is done, do the underground utilities get transferred over into the city's ownership in some way?
Under this circumstance, the way I've been understanding how this project's gonna move ahead, the city would ultimately, the utilities would be transferred to ownership of the city. We would own and operate the sewer, the water. We'd maintain a utility easement for that purpose over the top of those. There would be a street that's built in there as well, but the street is going to remain private, is my understanding. Just like the rest of the streets, or I shouldn't say the rest, but a majority of those streets out in that area are private, not the cities. And, you know, it would be something that we would know, based on the plans that are coming forward for that, we would have no intention of ever taking those streets because they do not meet our minimum criteria in terms of widths and things like that.
So it's critical that we make sure that those utilities get put in, so that we don't have an issue like.
And we'll review the plans. I'm gonna assume that a condition will be that we will have on-site inspection, make sure that they're at adequate depth and things of that nature. So,
Gio?
Well, Bruce's point, I think, the issue here is that a street gets put in, and now the owners come along, and so the guy buys it. Is there any way this can be added to the plat at the expense of the landowner? Because the plat's reviewed by the realtor and by the homeowner that buys the property. So this should be noted on the plat that these streets were privately owned and not part of the city.
Larry, can you respond to that?
You're taxing my memory, and it goes back quite a ways, because this plat was done probably 10 or 12 years ago, so I don't recall if that was expressly worded on the plat that these are private streets, but generally, in a plat, it states whether or not the roads are dedicated to the public or not, and in this case, the plat would not state that any of these roads have been dedicated to the public.
But plats can be altered, right? We can make an amendment to the plat.
Go into that much due diligence, I would question that.
Could we request the landowner to make an amendment to the plat?
Well, I don't know that that's necessary. I think it's in what happens is that's in the development paperwork when the person buys that real estate. What happens is they go down the road in 5 and 10 years, and even though it's the same owner, they forget that that's not a public street, and I pay my taxes, because I'm gonna pay taxes like everybody else, and you don't plow my street. So those are the issues that will come up. They come up in every community where you have a private development of this nature. And so if at this point, we've done what I would call the first or second phase of that project has pretty much been done as a private development with the city approving the installation and approving the installation of the utilities. We have required that the utilities meet all of our design standards. So we're looking at 6-inch water mains, 8-inch sewers, et cetera. They have to submit their plans for any lift stations or anything. All that gets approved. Those plans get approved by John's office. Then we actually have an inspector from John's office go out and inspect the project as it goes along, so they follow that. What doesn't happen is we don't guarantee anything relative to the streets because it's not our intent to take those over. So the issue becomes when they usually want narrower streets so they can have more space to get more development on the property than what would normally be allowed under city design standards. And so that's the trade-off the owners are making, the owners of the property, not necessarily the buyers of the units, right? They get it.
Al, I assume you want to say something.
I can assure you, it's in part of our development agreement, and it's also in, like, when they purchase a house, it's got everything laid out there. When they go through each item, the real estate agents that are selling on our end, on their end, it's real specific exactly what is entailed to live in that development and what all they expect. There's no surprise that the road's not being plowed by the city. I'll assure you, because we have 2 meetings a year, and the budgets are brought up, and it's voted upon who's gonna plow, who's gonna do it. We have a maintenance committee with, all that stuff is taken care of. Yes, at one time they thought, bring it over. Our roads are narrower, but we have no parking on the streets, so we can have them, 20 feet narrower. So they are narrower, but yet they do accommodate during the winter months, because they have no parking in the winter months. So that there is an issue there of plowing and stuff, but we're addressing that as we go. It's just, there's growing pains. I mean, to be honest with you, it's the greatest feeling I've had. I mean, I've been struggling with that development for 15 years. And did I ever think I was gonna get here to ask for this? Not as quick as I did. Things are going great, and it's upon your city. You guys are doing a good job. I've done 4 different developments in the city. They're all filled up now, and I've had great success here. And like I said, everybody's aware of what's being done up there. I mean, there's no surprises. We have, everybody's on an email, we got a great group up there, and everybody's well notified, just so you guys can feel comfortable. They're not buying a house on not knowing what they're getting.
Thanks for your comments, Al, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for investing in Detroit Lakes. Bruce?
Well, one last thing though, Mr. Keller, so you did get a letter from Larry Remen, our our community development director about the number of slips out on the lake too, right? You know you're limited to 28.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Al. Further discussion? We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. I'm gonna start making a little note when there's been a motion, you know, to myself. Let me just look here. I see Carl is here, and I think Carl had something back on Madeline's
Yep.
agenda, so could we jump back and accommodate Carl on
Okay.
item,
We're gonna jump back to C, I believe it is.
okay?
This is consideration to a variance to allow a 3-foot side yard setback and a 3-foot front yard setback for construction of a 12 by 12-foot storage shed at 1135 Westlake Drive. The Planning Commission reviewed this, has some recommendations, but if those recommendations are followed, then the Community Development Committee, they recommended that we would grant this. So Larry, want to just refresh the council's memory on that?
Well, again, you have a resolution in your packet that lists the findings of facts that are required by the state of Minnesota. Planning Commission recommends approval of a 12 by 12 storage shed with a 3-foot side yard and a 3-foot front yard setback, provided that the owner remove the existing storage shed prior to construction of a new one, and that the property not exceed the 25% impervious surface requirement.
Okay.
And pursuant to his following those recommendations, the Community Development Committee grants that, or moves that we grant the variance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to allow a 3-foot yard, side yard setback and a 3-foot front yard setback at 1135 Westlake Drive. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We haven't seen you for a while, Carl. How are you? Is there anyone else, you know, before we have Mr. Rubenstein come up for the Department of Corrections, is there anybody else that has an item they would like to take care of?
Next one on the list.
Okay, next one would be 5D, right? Madeline, could we do that one too?
Sure.
All right.
Consideration to a variance to allow a 48-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark and a 2-foot 11-inch setback from the roadside property line to allow construction of a 30-foot by 50-foot cabin at 1153 Westlake Drive. And the Planning Commission did review this. Larry has the recommendations before us, I think, if you want to just go through them, Larry.
Great. Again, the resolution contains all of the findings of fact that we're required to make by state law. Planning Commission has reviewed this request and has recommended approval of the variance request subject to the following conditions. First, that the project not exceed the 25% impervious surface requirement. 2, that the project be constructed generally as shown on the site plan. 3, that the owner construct and maintain a 12-inch high berm along the shoreline to prevent stormwater runoff from entering into the lake, and that the owners remove the sidewalk from the lake to a control joint by the patio. 4, that the owners remove the cabin on the northerly end of the lot by October 31st, 2019. And 5, that rain gutters be placed on the home to direct stormwater away from the lake.
Okay.
The Community Development Committee reviewed those recommendations with, Larry actually added a couple from what the Planning Commission had recommended, and we so moved that that variance be granted.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to grant a variance at 1153 Westlake Drive, subject to 5 conditions, right, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah, subject to 5 conditions. And you must be Mr. Lund?
Representative.
Okay, all right. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Is there anyone else in the audience that's got an item that they'd like to adjust? If not, I'm gonna call on Brian, and I probably butchered your last name. Is it Rubenstein? If you could just introduce yourself to the council, Brian.
Good evening, Council. Brian Rubenstein, Minnesota Department of Corrections. And basically here on a proactive nature and informational purposes only to announce the move of our adult corrections felony office that we currently occupy in the Wells Fargo building on the 2nd floor. Our current address is 204 West Holmes, and we're going to be moving to 1135 Washington. And suite number is suite 102. The reason I'm here tonight is there may be questions coming in the near future from any residents within Detroit Lakes. We're moving because of, we have operational needs that we've outgrown our current lease in our property in the Wells Fargo building. And so with our new placement in the back of our new building on Washington, we're able to incorporate our conference rooms, agent rooms, interview rooms, et cetera, et cetera. You may be asking how the traffic flow or parking is going to be handled on that. We really don't see much traffic flow increase for that area. And/or parking, there's ample parking in the new location too. So our hours of operation are 8 to 4:30 as standard, except for some of our agents work some nighttime hours and/or early morning hours, so you may be seeing them at that location too. Our clientele, like I said, is felony level offenders, all sorts of individuals on supervision, both on probation and parole. Those folks will be meeting in the back of that building, like we said, along with treatment providers for our sex offender groups and any other cognitive-based groups that we run within our building that will be leased in. Our move date is October 29th. Technical end date for operation of business is going to be November 3rd. And so I just wanted to be proactive so that council members and other folks that may bring you questions, you know when are we going to be moving and why we're moving to that location. So
Okay,
that's really all I have.
all right, well, thanks for coming, Brian.
But just, I need to clarify, you said 1135, so just so we're all aware, that's that new building?
That's the new building.
Gotcha,
We
okay.
don't have any basement issue things, and we don't have any variance expansion. It should be okay. No basement extensions. So, any questions from the council at all?
Any questions for Brian? Thanks for coming. We
Thanks for being proactive, we
Thanks.
appreciate it.
You bet.
Good luck.
Okay, and there's nobody else in the audience that's got an item. There can't be much left.
There's not.
So we'll go back and you got more stuff from
I do.
Madeline. Okay, go ahead.
Item E is consideration to a variance to allow construction of a parking lot in an industrial district without the 8% interior landscaping at 1111 13th Avenue Southeast. This is the new parking lot that BTD Manufacturing is going to be putting in that Mr. Welty was talking about earlier. And I shall call on Larry just to kind of give us a feeling for where that parking lot actually is and how the doing without the 8% interior landscaping is going to actually work out.
If you go straight north on Peter Street, you'll run right into this parking lot. So it's basically over the hill from Peter Street, so it's down low. There's a lot of elevation change to get down to that parking lot. And because of that, it's difficult to put the interior landscaping in because all of the extra space that they have is on the outer edge of this where the elevations are severe and you couldn't put a parking lot where you wanted to. So planning commission noted that they had a unique circumstance and recommend approval of their request.
The Community Development Committee reviewed all that and moves to grant the variance.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded to grant a variance to allow construction of a parking lot at 1111 13th Avenue Southeast without the 8% interior landscaping. Discussion on the motion?
Well, since Dave left, we should tell him we turned it down.
Awful nice day out there. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion's carried.
The last item on our agenda tonight is consideration to the approval of an engineering report for the Clark Gables cluster relative to a variance for Raymond and Marcia Monson, and it seems like we've seen this a lot. But at this point, John, our city engineer, John Pratt, has informed me that he'd prefer that we defer this until November because he has not actually been able to give his recommendations in writing to Larry at this time. So I'm going to move to defer it.
Without objection, we'll just defer it, okay?
Sounds
What
good?
has he been working on a street project or something? What's the problem?
Gosh, I just don't know why you can't find time.
Anything else, Madeline?
No, that's it.
Before I forget, Gloria, will you make sure that Ron and Jamie get these additional sheets that were distributed? Okay. With that, let's move to Chairman Oni and Public Works Committee. There's some additional items there.
Yes, thank you. 6A, Tom was with us yesterday, Tom from the DOT, talking about the Highway 1059 Home Street Extension Project. Some changes taking place out there, some soil issues that have come up that may result in some changes that may actually result in some potential savings for the city. Construction still on schedule, so far as we know, at this point, so we'll
So
have-
Dave, worst case scenario is it'll be next summer and the summer after. Best case is next summer.
Right, right. So, okay, and then item B, offering consideration to a resolution declaring cost to be assessed and ordering the preparation of proposed assessments for street and utility improvements regarding the Minnesota and McKinley Avenue reconstruction projects. Resolution enclosed with the packet that we received. I move for approval of that resolution.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a resolution declaring cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of the assessment roll for the Minnesota McKinley Avenue reconstruction projects. One question I have is, in our packet, we had some of these and then there was more distributed. Was there a change in, which are the ones we're using, the new ones or the old ones?
The new
New ones?
ones on the rate.
On our desk.
Yep, the rate changed from 6% to 5.75%.
Got it. Okay, discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried.
Item C, setting a hearing for those proposed assessments. That'll take place at our November council meeting, November the 12th. I'd move to approve that resolution date.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to set the hearing date for those proposed assessments on Minnesota and McKinley for street and utility improvements, and that would be set for November 12th. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
Jump down to item G, authorizing the issuance of dock license for 2014 for Jack Hansen at the Pine de Paul Motel, 702 Westlake Drive. Same fee as previous. Move for approval of that so that he may continue on with his, continuing dock license.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a dock license for 702 Westlake Drive for 2014. Is that correct? It's for this year?
Right, he didn't put one out this year,
But
but
he wants to keep
in
the
order to
permit up.
maintain
Okay.
his,
Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried.
And then item H, dealing with the street fair. They're asking for the closure of streets and so forth as in the past. At this point, they had some contingent plans that we heard of yesterday, possibly involving Lake Avenue, tied in with construction on Washington Avenue, if that should happen at that time. So we're offering them their request contingent upon construction plans. I'd move for approval of their request.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the street closure, special event, and festival permit for the Street Fair of the Lakes 2015. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and motion's carried.
That is all I have under the Public Works.
Thanks, David. Chairman Zeman is not here, and so Dan.
We got 6J.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Starts off these
That's
consent
right,
agenda.
on status
Yes.
report.
Yes.
John, do you want to just run through the project status report, please?
Certainly, Mayor. Some of these we've already kind of talked through tonight, but Washington Avenue, we are where we are with that. The hearing next month, we're moving ahead with the design survey. The county authorized preparation of plans this morning at their meeting, so that project is still on track for opening bids probably sometime in February. 10 and 59, as Alderman Ani indicated, that project had just a little bit of a speed bump with some soil contamination issues that were uncovered by MnDOT here recently. And that's going to cause some changes in the plan. The overall project isn't going going to change in terms of a layout or anything like that, but some construction means and techniques are gonna have to be adjusted for that in order to accommodate those contaminated soils. So they're moving we had initially intended to bid the project, I think, in November. Now we'll be looking at some time in February, but still maintaining a May 1 start date for next year. So the changes in a nutshell that were alluded to is that we aren't going to have to remove and replace as much sanitary sewer as we once thought we were going to have to. Moving it because of some improvements, it was in fine shape, but now we can leave some of those, so our costs of the project should go down a little bit. Question?
But, Mayor, so that's the good side, but I think the other side of that, we talked yesterday, and I think the council needs to be aware of, and maybe Bob can do a better job of explaining this than I can, but if they take out those stormwater ponds, that may have an effect on the phosphorus requirement the city has, the TMDL that we've got, and whatever, and I don't know if you want to say anything to that, Bob, but I mean, I think if that's the case, we need the MnDOT to come back and do something that helps us, because maybe we're gaining something on one side, but if it costs us more on the other side, I don't know that that's a good thing, so.
Bob, you just want to briefly run through that?
Quickly, what they're possibly going to look at doing is constructing the road without installing the normal storm sewer treatment ponds that would be in. So what we requested at the Public Works Committee meeting was that MnDOT give some consideration to looking at installing some additional treatment or incorporating additional treatment in other projects to reduce the overall loading. Even though this particular segment wouldn't meet standards, we could compensate somewhere else in the overall goal that we're trying to reach, which is a 50% reduction. We still are moving in the proper direction overall system.
And this is in St. Clair Lake.
Yes.
So that's, yeah, good point.
And I'll keep working with MnDOT, so.
Okay.
Work back. Minnesota McKinley, the project is, for all practical purposes, complete. We're working on final payment with the contractor. I have an assessment hearing next month, and that should conclude that project. Upper Sucker Creek Trail and Marsh Walk. The trail itself and most of the project is complete. We're waiting for the contractor to install the Marsh Walk. They had requested more or less a time extension to do that. Once the ground has started to freeze up a little bit, make the installation of that a whole lot less messy. So we've approved that. And that should be completed, I would imagine, sometime in the month of November, and then that project will be done.
And I can just make a real quick comment on that.
Yep.
Had an opportunity to go out and walk that on Saturday, and that's gonna be a very nice addition to our city. I mean, you can't walk the Marsh Walk yet, but you can see where it's gonna go and come and swing around. And if any council people have a chance to get out there, I'd encourage them to do that. Beautiful this time of year with the trees.
Was that the same day you walked to the top of the mountain?
I did.
You were on quite a safari on Saturday.
Yeah, we took a
Boy.
road trip, yeah.
All right.
The multi-use trail from the box culvert to McKinley Avenue, that project also complete. Met with the DNR to do a final walkthrough on that, and working on final payment approvals and things of that nature with Howard right now, but that project's also done. Dan Street improvements, we were working on the design of that project, and potentially that one would be rolled in with some Legion improvements to Legion Street next year. But we're picking away at the design of that currently. Water main airport loop / lift station / force main, water main relocations, a bunch of utility improvements that more or less are being done in response to, or in preparation rather, for the Highway 10 project. That contract is underway. We look to start probably turning dirt on a couple of lift stations starting late or early next week, I should say. We'll see work on that project through the course until it frees up. And then some of that work is going to carry over into the spring of next year.
Any questions for John on the project status report? Besides the potential to do the Washington Avenue and some of these, is there any other projects of significance that we have on our plans for next summer?
No, not to my knowledge, other than Legion Road. I think the rest of it is going to be probably focused on maybe some preliminary and planning work for some of the work we got coming up in the next couple of years, whether it be Long Lake or Westlake Drive, things like that. So,
Thanks, John. So that'll do it for the Public Works Committee. So we'll move to the Finance Committee, and Chairman Zeman is not able to be here tonight, so Dan is gonna handle any items on the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep.
We had one item come before the Finance Committee that was not on the agenda, and that is the American Legion sent us their proposed campground rates for 2015. They're part of the handout that you have there. The Finance Committee did review these. There's a 3% across the board increase that we thought that was reasonable, made sense. And so I move approval of the campground rates as presented to us for 2015 for the American Legion campground.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the American Legion campground rates for 2015. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's carried. I saw that we also had something from the Fire Department Relief Association. Is there a resolution we need to approve there?
Public safety.
Public safety, okay, I'm sorry. Anything else, Dan?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right. We'll go to the public safety, Chairman Waller.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep.
And as you pointed out, there's a resolution for the Fire Department Pension Fund. I'd like to make a motion that we raise the lump sum pension from $5,400 for each year of firefighter service to $6,000. We discussed it in the committee and recommend approval.
Okay.
I'll
Is there,
second that.
motion's been made and seconded to increase the lump sum pension to $6,000 per year versus $5,400. Discussion on the motion.
Just a
Bob?
quick clarification, this will not require any increase in the city's contribution to the Fire Relief Association. It's all being done through additional earnings on their capital.
Okay. Chief, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. The guys will like it though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried.
Along the same lines with the fire department, Assistant Chief Todd George and firefighter Ryan Swanson attended a training in Colorado sponsored by Burlington Northern for a week on their own time, going through specialized training for rail car derailments and those types of scenarios. So I just wanted to recognize them for their outstanding effort. There's a motion on the, we'd like to move that, I'm sorry, let me start over. There's a request to have a speed study done on Longview Drive to change the speed limit from 30 to 40. We've had a citizen step forward and ask. I would like to make a motion to have that done.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to do a speed study, is that?
Correct.
Something that the
We have to
Chief?
request MinDOT to do it.
MinDOT does it? And Longview Drive is which segment?
Longview goes along the edge of the wastewater treatment pond, and then it goes west towards Long Lake.
Okay. The back way to Menards.
That's correct. That's
Right.
what they're talking about.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It's
Motion-
access to the Long Lake Park.
Right. Motion's been made and seconded to have MinDOT do a speed limit study on Longview Drive. Discussion on the motion?
One quick question, is there
Yep.
any cost to us on this?
I don't believe so.
Further discussion?
Well, just, Madeline, you're out there, is that what people are in favor of?
Well, I think people are in favor of raising the speed limit out there. It's at 30 now. It had been before a county road, and we didn't have that 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. And I think people are finding that 30-mile-an-hour speed limit to be kind of inhibiting.
Are you leading the
Is that
pack?
a- is that- is that a good word?
Yes, it is.
Just for
No, I have not. I have not been the one leading the pack on that one.
Just for clarification, the state law sets the speed limit for all municipal streets at 30 miles per hour. There are a few exceptions, school zones, et cetera. But to have a speed limit other than that, you need to go through the Minnesota Department of Transportation and get approval. And that's why we need to request MinDOT to do the
Okay.
analysis.
That makes sense. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
As brought up last month, the county has changed their radio system over, which is causing the municipalities to upgrade their radio system at their own cost. We're looking at incurring approximately $200,000 in total cost for these radio systems. The fire department has been turned down for a grant request for $95,000, and so these are just some issues that we're gonna have to be looking at over the course of this next year.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? When did we buy the radios we have now?
2 years ago.
Well, so 2 years ago, we bought radios, and what was the cost of those radios roughly?
70,000?
Yeah, I believe it was around 75,000 for the radios themselves. There was some additional costs because we, along with this, we also upgraded some of our software and our tracking programs in the police department. I don't know, Chief, do you want to?
Yeah, we had started years ago, Chief Keena had started to transition our radios to be compliant with the P25. It was a federal regulation, so we had started our process. The direction that we were going was the digital VHF route. A couple of years ago was when that direction changed to the 800 megahertz of the Armor system. So that's kind of the historical. So we had, 2 years ago, right before we had to come into compliance, that's when we brought everything up to the digital compliance, so we were good to go at that time.
So Chief, do the techies think this will stay for a while now?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I think it's like anything else. In 5 years, we don't know, maybe there'll be 801 megahertz, I don't know. The best guess, for us, either way would have been fine, but the main thing for us is that we need to communicate with the state patrol, with the other agencies, with the county, with the fire department, that kind of stuff. So whatever direction we were going, we needed to kind of all be on the same page. And when we flipped a couple of years ago, that was the frustrating part, but I'm not against the Armor system at all. It's just important that we are able to communicate with each other.
Okay, thank you for the update.
And we have to do this, and I'm all for it. My only point in this is that we just went through our budget, one percentage point in our budget is
$42,000.
$42,000. So this $200,000 is effectively 5 percentage points. So a decision made, whether it was right or wrong at the time isn't the issue, but decisions made by somebody else are affecting us greatly financially. So we don't live in a vacuum, and those decisions matter. And for the citizens out there, that's just the point, that the county makes decisions, and sometimes the bear eats us, I guess, and this is where it got us.
Good point, Jill, thank you. Further discussion?
Can we bury that in Washington Avenue somewhere?
What's that?
Can we bury that in Washington Avenue somewhere?
Maybe we can get the 200 back in Washington Avenue. Maybe they'll give it back to us. How's that?
There's no motion or anything.
All right, we better stop before we get in trouble here.
Thanks,
Marty. Anything else?
We just have a couple things the chief would like to
Okay, Chief.
talk about.
Yep.
My scruffy appearance is abnormal for us as a police department. We are allowing our officers to kind of forgo shaving for 5 weeks. The purpose is to raise some money for Special Interests of Minnesota, and also for the deer hunters in our group, kind of gives them an opportunity to let the growth begin. And I apologize for the appearance. My wife informs me that 5 weeks is an awful long time, and I don't know that I'll be seeing this in 5 weeks. We'll see how it goes. The other thing is we have a Citizens Police Academy that will be starting on Monday, November 3rd. It's free, open to the public, and we're limiting the class to 16 people. It'll be 7 Monday nights, beginning November 3rd to December 15th. So if the people that live in Detroit Lakes, work in Detroit Lakes, or have a business in Detroit Lakes, if they're interested, they can check out the city's website. We have applications at the police department. I believe there's some applications here at City Hall. And just gives the community kind of a more in-depth look at what the police department is, who makes up our police department, what is our training and qualifications and that kind of stuff. So it'll be good for the police department, for the officers to meet some more people in the community. It'll be good for the community to see a little bit more behind the scenes on what we're doing.
Is there some input that you also get from these folks that participate in this in terms of, you know, outside suggestions, if you will, or things like that?
I mean, we're always open to suggestions, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things of it is 95% of what we know about law enforcement is information we get through the media. And so it's not always an accurate portrayal of why we make the decisions we do and what goes into the things that we do. But so certainly, and that's why we want people to know a little bit more about why we're making the decisions we make. Similar to what the council does, some people would say that when the council makes a decision, that what the heck were they thinking? But they weren't there in the committees, they weren't there, you know, reading the research and doing the background work. So that's what we want people to see is, you know, what kind of cars do we have, why do we have them, you know, why do we have the things on our belts that we do, and, you know, what kind of training goes into being a police officer.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Any further questions for Chief Hagerbratton? Marty, anything else on the public safety?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
We'll move to the-
Did you want to speak on the Fire Prevention Week? That the fire department goes to the...
Yeah, we can let
Yeah,
Chief Flynn do
Scott.
that.
Well, that was last week, though.
Yeah.
Well,
We had
yeah,
an
but...
open house at the fire station last week. We had 600 people go through, we got them hot dogs and cold and chips, and gave the kids tours and adults tours, and people really liked it, and it was pretty well, so.
I missed it this year. Did you cut up a car?
Yeah, got the car, we had the smokehouse for the kids to go through, yeah. We did all the tours at the schools, all the guys stepped up to the plate. Each took shifts at each school and daycare centers, all that stuff.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, we always appreciate, when I was a teacher, we always appreciated that efforts of the fire department to come speak to the kids.
I always went there because I liked the hot dogs.
Oh, but at the fire department, they came to the schools and talked to kids.
Right. No, they do a good job. Thanks again, Chief. Okay, let's move to the Liquor Gambling Control Committee and Chairman Breivik.
We have a few items, Your Honor.
Yep.
The first item, 9A, is consideration to the request of the Detroit Lakes Police Department for a donation of $100 for the annual safety education program. A $100 donation was made in 2010 and again 2013. It's to help cover the cost of the annual safety education program. And I make a motion that we give the $100 towards the Detroit Lakes Police Department for the annual safety education program.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve a $100 donation out of the liquor fund to assist the Detroit Lakes Police Department in their effort to put on the annual safety education program. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
9B, consideration to the request of the United Way of Detroit Lakes for a 2015 contribution. We already gave in 2014 a $500 contribution from the liquor fund, and I move that the city give from this liquor fund to the United Way of Detroit Lakes in the sum of $500.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a donation out of the liquor fund of $500 for the United Way of Detroit Lakes for their 2015 budget, right?
Yes.
Yep, okay. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
9C, consideration to setting a date on November 12th, 2014 at 5 p.m. to hear public comment on changing the liquor license fees for 2015. I make a motion that we meet on November 12th, 2015, to hear public comment on changing liquor license fees.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to set a hearing for the November 12th council meeting to allow a public hearing to occur regarding changing the 2015 liquor license fees. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
9D, hearing should be set for November 12th, 2014 council meeting to give consideration to the issuance of club liquor license and Sunday club liquor licenses for the VFW, American Legion, and Eagles for 1 year beginning January 1st, 2015. And I make a motion that we meet on November 12th to discuss that.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to set a hearing for November 12th to give consideration to issuance of club liquor licenses. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion is carried.
And item E, a hearing should be set for November 12th, 2014 council meeting to give consideration to the issuance of an on-sale wine license for the Chinese Dragon of Detroit Lakes and La Barista LLC for 1 year beginning January 1st, 2015. I move that we have a hearing on November 12th to issue those licenses.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to set a hearing for November 12th, 2014 to give consideration to issuance of on-sale wine licenses for Chinese Dragon and La Barista. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Are you opposed?
No.
He just was a beat behind us.
Well, kind of liven things up again a little bit, but the motion carries unanimously.
Part F, consideration to a second reading and adoption of ordinance 383, amending the liquor license city code 702.04 relative to prorated refunds and fees. And I'd like to ask the city attorney to address this and for clarification.
This is the second reading of an ordinance that we addressed last month. And just in reviewing the item 9F that's in the agenda, I think there's some typographical errors, and I just want to make sure that we don't adopt that as the final version. And so I think the ordinance should read, or the ordinance should read, an ordinance amending Chapter 700 Liquor, Wine, and Beer of the Detroit Lake City Code by amending Section 70204, Subdivision 3, term pro rata fee, and Section 70204, Subdivision 4, refunds. In other words, we delete the remainder of that sentence. Be it ordained by the City of Detroit Lakes as follows. Section 70204 is amended as follows. And then Subdivision 3, term each license shall be issued for a period of 1 year, except that if the application is made during a license year, a license shall be issued for the remainder of the year, with any unexpired fraction of a month be construed as 1 month. Liquor license fees and investigative fees shall not be prorated. Every license shall expire on the last day of December. And then Subdivision 4, refunds and no refunds of any fee be made. And the council may recall from last month, essentially what this is a clarification of the existing ordinance. And it just clarifies that we're not going to be prorating the license fees for people who would apply for licenses during mid-year. And the existing ordinance was less than clear as far as that.
So is the way this is printed right now, Charlie, is that correct now?
No, it is not correct.
What
We
gets
would cross out allowing prorated liquor license fees and refund of license fees.
And that's
in
the
first paragraph.
that's the only thing we're crossing out, right?
Where it says, be it ordained by the City of Detroit Lakes as follows, and then it says Subdivision 4, you'd cross out Subdivision 4, and you'd put in Section 70204 is amended as follows. Those are the only changes. But no changes to the actual substance of Subdivision 3 or Subdivision 4.
So to clarify, Mayor, if I can, clarify. Somebody wants to stop, they bought their license, they want to stop in June, they paid their license, they aren't getting any money back.
That's correct.
Somebody wants to come and start and get a liquor license in October, they're paying for the whole year.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
I move that we adopt the ordinance 383, amending the liquor license city code 702.04, as Charlie has outlined.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance number 383, which amends our chapter 700 liquor, wine, and beer ordinance. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried, and the ordinance number 383 is adopted.
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Okay.
Public utilities is one item.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on a discussion we had last month, the commission formally approved this morning a $50,000 additional transfer to the general fund of the city from the utilities. So the total transfer for 2015 will be $525,000. I know Mr. Tucker did a good job last month of explaining the importance of that utility fund and the liquor fund to the city budget, but I just wanted to make sure the council knew that the commission had formally approved that.
Excellent.
No,
Thank you.
No motion or anything, just
Okay.
information.
Good information. Thanks, Bruce. There are three individuals on the airport commission whose terms have expired, and they are all willing to serve another term, and I would like to recommend to the council the names Mark Hagan, Howard Hanson, and Mark Green, and that they be reappointed to the airport commission for another term, and I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to reappoint Mark Hagan, Howard Hanson, and Mark Green to the airport commission. Discussion of the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. I've not talked to Tom or Jim, and I will before next month's meeting. As Councilman Auni pointed out, our November meeting will be on a Wednesday this year due to Veterans Day on November 11th, right? It's a Wednesday. And of course, the general elections are coming up and are scheduled for November 4th, 2014. There's a League of Minnesota's regional meeting that's going to be held in Vergus on October 29th. If anyone in the council is interested in attending, you can sign up through Glory and attend that meeting. We did have a joint school, county, city, chamber, M-State meeting this morning hosted by the county over at the courthouse. And anything that we want to bring up there, Bruce, Madeline? I guess one thing that was noted by the county was that their 1.5% smart tax revenues are down quite a bit from what they projected. That was one of the things they mentioned, just for your information. So there will be a public discussion on the 2015 budget and tax levy at our city council meeting on December 9th, 2014. That'll occur at 6:01 p.m. Also, I'm going to ask that Lori send out kind of a poll to see what day, maybe in the next couple of weeks, would work for all of you to get together and do a wrap-up on our planning session and go over all the sort of how everybody ranked the priorities. And so I think I'll just have Glory poll you with 2 or 3 different dates and times, and we'll see if we can get most of the council together for that. Anything else from the city staff? Bruce, anything else tonight? David?
Nothing, sir.
Ellen? Madeline?
Nothing.
Leo? Marty? Dan?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, then the business of this council has come to a conclusion. Meeting is adjourned.